Hello everyone, it's Christoph Trapp with interiors+sources and buildings.com. Thanks for joining us for another episode of our podcast. And today I'm in Chicago at Turf Design at their new headquarters. Is that even the right way to describe this building?
Yeah, it's our firehouse.
It's their firehouse. That was Zoe Post, who is an expert here on design, and we'll chat. And I'm also joined by Dustin Headley.
That's right.
And so thanks for joining us today. We took a tour of the building already. Talk about the design, some of the history of the company, and what makes you guys unique.
Okay, well, we're a new company, about 2.5 years old, and we are taking over in the design and acoustics industry and architectural products. So we have a lot of products that are aimed at both working in all types of spaces, branded environments, office spaces, schools, and we focus on a number of different things: design, ease of install, as well as
Adaptive solutions to custom spaces. Like custom is what we do.
So one thing that I noticed when I came in here, so I've obviously covered content around acoustics, and a lot of times, you either notice good acoustics or you don't, right? You walk in and sometimes I see a building and it looks beautiful, and you walk in and the acoustics are terrible, but you can't really tell until you walk in. Right here, you have a very distinct branding. I walked in, I could tell, well, that's Turf. Right. So talk about that. How did that happen? What's the thinking behind the unique designs?
Well, I like your take of kind of making something that's not visible. And I think we're definitely doing that. Through all our products are helping with acoustics. This is a growing issue in open office environments. And schools, and we're giving it a new edge, a new spin, with creating solutions that are visually fun and visually work with the space. So we work with architectural space. If there's certain things that are going on in that space that we want our design to play to, we can work with that. So our design is adaptive. Our products, but they're flexible. They're custom. We can make them work in a lot of different environments under a lot of different types of constraints.
So we are in an open office environment here, obviously. As you walk in, and as we're showing people your office here in our video, especially, there's walls between the spaces, right? There's the design on top. Talk about how that helps with the work environment.
So what essentially is going on is the open office, we actually tried to model the problem that we are trying to solve in the space that we're presenting the product in, because in a lot of ways this is acting as a showroom as well as an office. So what we've done is, one, we sort of recreated a sort of typical office environment where you have people just running along, sitting in desks, working on designs, very typical of an architecture office, actually. And then we've tried to create a space that is both sort of visually inspiring and then also acoustically resolved in terms of its performance. So looking at the way that we treat the walls that are adjacent to the designers, so that sort of tactile adjacency is right there. I mean, we're in a space where it's we're literally leaning against the felt. And then also putting that up in the ceiling, being able to then also dynamically adjust that around things like lights, ductwork. It's very common for us to move around sprinkler heads, truss structures, and all of that. And then instead of making that feel sort of like a collision of elements, making that feel fluid through the dynamic tools that we have. So everything is parametric. It's often driven by sort of surface development. And so we draw the surface, we sort of embed either the building code or the sort of field constraints associated with that, and then extract out the geometries that will ultimately become the product. So, and in a lot of ways, it's really interesting because literally what the architect can draw is exactly what they're going to get in the instance of this. So, along with a bunch of really, should they need it or should the project call for it, all this evaluation that can also be done. So we can very accurately control how much surface area we're putting in the space. So if we were to do an RT60 acoustic test, all of a sudden we can know exactly what the impact on that space is going to be. So.
And we often talk about tenant amenities, right? People expect certain things, and I mean people expect good acoustics, I would assume.
Almost always. That's but it's also not like a thing that you anticipate,
Complaint,
right? Yeah, it's like one of those things that we end up. It was interesting because when we first moved into the office, we didn't have the ceiling and all the other amenities up, and so it was actually really difficult to work in the space. And so as we've actually worked and completed and resolved the projects that are associated and installed in the space, that has ameliorated a lot of the issues that people had and that were complaining about when they initially moved in.
So in the open office environment here, you actually worked here without good acoustics? Is that basically what you just said?
Correct. Yeah, this room that we're standing in was unusable. We're standing in a small call room where you can, break away from your desk, talk with one other person, or just have some heads down time. It was unusable. It was, concrete floor and 2 drywall walls. Now there's 2 felt walls on either side of us and a series of baffles over our heads. And it's almost like wearing earmuffs. It's a nice acoustical environment. It's very comfortable to be in this space.
Yeah, I mean, the way I would describe this space when we were doing it, it's like there was like a 1.5 reverb time. So if you can imagine like that experience wearing your cell phone where there's a delay in your talking, it was exactly like that when we were initially moved into the space. So
I just got a headache just by that description.
It was extremely bad, and now it's sort of great. I mean, these things sort of function and perform exactly the way we anticipated them to work. So.
Fantastic. So as you're walking to the open office space, is there anything else you want to share about the design or the setup that would be of interest?
A lot of this, so I know there's some dynamics with the sort of VR stuff on this, but if you look at the installation that's actually in the main office, one side of this is light gray and the other side is red. And so actually, depending on the approach vector that you approach the installation from, you're either going to get sort of a very potent visual statement from the color, and then from the other approach, you're going to get a very subdued. So the view from the street is actually sort of the red, vibrant firehouse red, but actually on the interior of the space, when you're moving around the space, it's more subdued, it's lighter. So we really tried to pay attention to the different features in the space and how people are going to experience it in the actual planning and design of the space itself. So.
Very interesting. And then you have an adjacent room with the periodic table of turf.
Correct, yes. So next to our open office is a prototype room where designers, as they're working, can hop in there and use all kinds of different tools to create prototypes of maybe semi-standard or totally custom products, a whole range of different things. Take photos, send them to architects, or even physically send them to architects that they're working with to proof out concepts. We can also just play. So it's meant to be a space in which we can both work and test out both the ideas that you're working on in your projects and the ideas that you just want to try out.
And then you can print.
Correct.
Oh yeah. No,
yeah. So we do have a host of other things that we do as well. We are able to our production facility is actually not too far from here, in a place where there's a whole campus of different vendors that we work with directly.
Yeah, and the important thing to state here is we have a nice fabrication, there's a vacuum former, a laser cutter, a 3D printer, and the notion that we have with that is that out at the manufacturing plant, we are either adjacent to or have that very same level of equipment for the large scale stuff immediately accessible. And so that manufacturing area in Elgin is adjacent to our partnered powder coater that's a quarter mile away, our partnered printing services that are a quarter mile away. So it's really, we've networked our way in the design industry in Chicago, but then also connected ourselves with the manufacturing blood of Chicago out here in Elgin. So.
And then as you walk upstairs, so you have similar design even in the stairway going up, and then talk about the upstairs.
Yeah, we tried to use every unique space since we want to be responding to different architectures. We want to be using all the spaces that are here available to us in the firehouse. So we even work in the stairway. The upstairs is our flex space. There is a kitchen up there. We use it for different events, meetings, breakout team events that we need to be hosting. We are a growing company, so there's an eye towards that becoming office space in the future. On the ceiling, we have one of our standard products, which is the drop baffle. Once we put that install up, again, that was a room that transformed. Right outside, we have one of the busiest freeways in the U.S., 9094. If you could jump or put a really long ladder across, you could get to that freeway out one of the windows. So it is right there, and you cannot hear any of it inside that office space. Along one of the walls is also a printed adhesive wall that has a dynamic, it's printed with a dynamic pattern that was created by two of our designers here, one of them Dustin, who worked to project a pattern onto a surface, assign different colors to the different levels, and create something with a lot of movement.
Yeah, and that's not only speaking to our sort of capacities in terms of the printed felt, but that also speaks to a lot of the parametrics that we build here. Like everything is custom. That any product that you might order from here is customizable through some parametric definition. And so if you order a straight baffle, every time that we execute a project, it's custom. It's either a standard custom or we're implementing custom details, a custom arrangement, really trying to deal with what the architect has drawn, rationalizing that as close as we can relative to the product, and trying to deliver on basically what it is their vision is. And we're trying to extend what it is they envision for the space all the way through to a physical construction.
And to get your product into a building, who do you normally work with?
Contractors. It's one of my favorite set of humans because I really enjoy people that build things, which is like I'm on the engineering side, so of course I naturally am the one building a lot of stuff too. And they're a great set of humans to work with, and to that end, we also a lot of the installation mechanisms and connection details that we've done really trying to set up an ease of install scenario. Our felt lock literally, if you can imagine installing 50 baffles along a 25-foot arrangement, basically laying up, instead of having to set pick points for each one of those cables, that would be a nightmare. Being able to set 6 to 8 pick points for a unistrut and then just basically pop the baffles up in the ceiling, you can install an entire ceiling in a matter of hours. So.
And we do hear that quite often. The easier, the better for installation, for sure.
Correct. Yeah, we want installers to love us. So that's they're a huge target for us. Every one of our products, we aim at being having that ease of install factor. So whether that be something that's using our felt lock, which is literally popped in, or something that is using cable gripper or something else. It's simple, it's clean, and the design is seamless.
And
we're also not afraid to go on site to make sure things are perfect. I've been to at least 2 job sites this month, and just because there was a little bit of issues on site with some things being installed out of spec, and just basically helping people out, making sure that everybody wins when these things are going on. So.
And typically, who, other than the contractors, who decides to get your product into a building? And is it usually new construction or existing or?
Yeah, usually it's coming from architects. They are speccing our products, and though we do have a host of other ways that we get projects. We do work with end users as well. In those cases, we're generally recommending an installer to work with alongside us.
And of course, it can be existing buildings.
Correct.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, that's that's definitely one of our selling points is that we love T-grid.
Well, but also,
So-
the story of like this building is this 120-year-old building, and so a lot of this in order to actually execute some of the custom installations throughout, we had to laser measure internally, but we know some guys that can do it professionally too. The spaces, and then actually we coordinated the product around what physically existed, down to like about a 10,000th of an inch in some places. So, yeah.
Very interesting. What else didn't we cover that we should?
The prototyping room. We better go in there and look at that periodic table of turf.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then also a lot of the stuff is like we really like to be challenged. I think is one of the sort of fantastic thing. Like we are really not afraid of custom, and that's I think becoming more and more. Like we see that as an opportunity and a fun challenge, and we really embrace being approached by designers, contractors, everybody who's just trying to figure something out to make the spaces and projects they're working on more successful.
Very interesting. Turf.design is your website.
Correct.
Were you involved at all in the decision to have .design?
I wasn't, no, actually, but the reason why I applied to the job is because of the clever stuff going on the website. So I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for both the .design and then the little logo doohickey that whenever you roll over it swashbuckles.
Flips around, yeah.
So.
There was something else I saw on Instagram too. It said something like "turn down the noise" or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we try to keep it clever and
Yeah.
light.
Stealing is believing. Yeah, everything's
Stealing
cheeky.
is believing.
I did see that too. Great. Thanks everyone for joining us. Thanks for making the time, Zoe Post and Dustin Headley.
Yeah, Blazing Saddles.
With Turf Design in Chicago.
Thank you.